What's up, nerds? Welcome back. If you will remember, DC Comics right now has a huge hard-on for the Suicide Squad, so they're trying to pump out as much Suicide Squad material as they can get. And that's what kind of leads us sort of to today with this Suicide Squad King Shark #1. So, I mean, let's just kind of get the obvious out of the way here. This is not a full-on Suicide Squad story, at least not yet. The reason why I'm pretty sure they're calling it Suicide Squad is because, yes, it is a King Shark story, and it does involve Amanda Waller. So I guess that's just enough for you to call it a Suicide Squad story since they had King Shark in the new movie or whatever. But we actually start out with a character who has never been a part of the Suicide Squad, and that's Defacer. Because we start out with this thing, which, if you don't know Defacer, she's a somewhat new character. I'm not overly, familiar with her myself. I know a little bit because she dated Nightwing and everything. But, I mean, there's just that. They've kind of broken up, but they still have feelings for each other. But then we see this thing where apparently she's, really pissed at him, so she goes to this statue that they've put up of him, and as you can see, it just says is a big, so obviously it's meant to imply Nightwing is a big, and then there's an arrow pointing. At first I thought it was to his ass, but no, it's actually pointing to the front, and apparently she kind of implies that she drew a big blue penis on the front of the statue, and that's what it's pointing to. So get it, he's a big dick. And I mean, they also kind of sell that even more when she says, well, you ignored me for months without even a call. So for where I'm standing, it definitely seems to me like you're just a big blue. And then we see Rick. So if you will remember, there's been that push to call Dick Grayson Rick Grayson, at least for a while. I don't know if they're still trying to push that whole thing, but I remember hearing about it when it first started. And then they were doing it in the comics. I think they still do it every so often, depending on who's talking about him. Some people will call him Rick, but his name is Dick. It always has been. I realize that seems funny, but hey, that's just how it is. Words evolve over time. I remember just a random story. I remember when I was in high school, I had a coach, and I was not one of those kids who was very physically with it or anything. So I was the kid sitting with the metal kids in the corner. But our coach was cool. He didn't make us do anything. It was just if someone else came in, he was like, well, at least get up and pretend like y'all are doing something. So we're like, all right, yeah, we can do that. When he came over to us one time, he would sometimes just trade stories with us. And he was talking to us, telling us that when he was a kid, that apparently when he and his friends wanted to call something cool, say that's really cool, your outfit is cool or whatever, they would call it cock. I don't remember why. Even he said that there wasn't any particular reason, I don't think, but that just, yeah, that was what they called it. And hey, your shoes are really cock. And I'm like it made us laugh, but that's what I was saying. Words just kind of evolve over time. Obviously, that word, even though it does still mean rooster too, I mean, it just kind of took on a different connotation and no one uses it for that anymore, right? But I mean, with this, Dick has always just been a shortened version of the name Richard, and we as adults were always able to handle that, even though I'm giggling as I say it. But you know what I mean. Anyway, let's just keep going with the story. So it says Nightwing was just getting his memory back after he'd been shot in the head and had amnesia. That's why he hadn't called. I believe that's from the Forever Evil thing, right? When they shot him in the head on camera and shit. So she's saying, how was I supposed to know that kind of thing happened to these people all the time? He was my first superhero boyfriend. I don't know, I have this temper. Nightwing used to say that sometimes I looked for reasons to ruin things, and I definitely ruined that. So she's like, I thought it would go differently with him, he really seemed to get me for who I am. And so this is where we widen up and see where she's in jail now, and she's part of Harley Quinn's little support group or whatever. Although I think someone else says, yeah, someone said another argument in Harley's breakout session. Maybe Waller should stop letting her play therapist. So she's not actually there in any official capacity, obviously. She's dressed exactly like them. But we see where this other one, the lava chick, her name is Hot Take. So Hot Take was over here trying to antagonize Defacer, and then she turns back at her. And she says, I don't know, what kind of supervillain looks like somebody cooked trailer trash on the grill? So, of course, that, like, pisses her off, and that was what started the fight and everything. So, she goes up, Defacer goes up and, like, starts punching her in the face. So, they kind of, like, separate them, and Harley's like, yo, you just punched someone, you know, who's not only on fire, so I don't know how she didn't, like, burn her fist, but she says, you punched someone who's wearing, like, a super strength, like, harness to, like, limit her powers. So, that's exactly what I would have done. And she says, and I'm, like, criminally insane. You're done for today, so... Probably a solid reasoning from Harley, surprisingly. But anyway, we see where Defacer is sitting down by herself eating, and then she has someone come up and walk up to her, and she like spits out her food because it's actually King Shark. And he comes up and he just sits down and says, Frenzy. One thing I do want to point out here in this book, if you're expecting King Shark to be like he was in the movie, that is not the case. He doesn't speak in just single words, and he doesn't talk like Stallone. Well, obviously he doesn't talk like Stallone, but you know what I mean. He doesn't act stupid, you know? He doesn't act mindless. Here, he's actually able to speak in complete sentences, and he understands like reasoning and logic of all that different stuff. So, she's saying, like, what are you saying? And he says, you went into a frenzy in session, like a shark. You can control it, you know, if you want. So she's like, well, I appreciate that, Mr. Shark, but honestly, I'm not a real big animal person. City girl, born and bred. So just leave me out of your Wild Kingdom episode, eh? So he just says Wild Kingdom, and he starts laughing. But then we see where he gets this, like, voice. Is it coming from... Yeah, it's coming from one of the fish that, like, picks its head up and says, it's time, Nanawe. So that causes him to, like, go into this rage or whatever where he literally flips the damn table. But we go back over to Defacer, who's now in like the restroom or whatever the hell. And then Hot Take comes up behind her and starts talking shit. And she says, Dr. Quinn ain't here, hun. And the harness turns itself off when I go to the ladies' room so I can use my deuce dropping muscles. Okay. But she says, you know what that means for you, Graffiti Girl? It means you're finally going to realize you're a tiny fish in a real big pond. So she like smashes her up against the mirror, and then she's about to like lay the literal smackdown on her, but then all of a sudden we see this like, and then just blood splattering everywhere. So when we turn the page, we see the King Shark literally came in and ripped the bitch apart, and he's just eating her, and he says that he missed lunch. So that's where we see Amanda Waller is talking to Defacer in her office. And she's saying, look, you have to believe me. I didn't ask him to do it. I mean, not Hot Take totally sucked, but I wouldn't wish getting eaten alive by a damn two-legged great white on anybody. And then she says, please don't explode my skull. But Waller tells her, Hot Take's death isn't of interest to me, Miss, saying, you are. Tell me, what do you know about King Shark? So she just kind of gives her like the basic rundown of, you know, King Shark's kind of basic history. Where she's saying, anyway, I heard he had a gang of mercrooks who ran black market treasures and tech out of Atlantis, which made him a punching bag for Aquaman. And then I guess he attacked some people over in Hawaii somewhere, so he had to go toe-to-toe with Superboy a couple of times. At some point, you got a hold of him, and he's been your Suicide Squad teeth and muscle ever since. Oh, one more thing. I know he's half man, half shark, but Amanda corrects her and says he's full shark. There, now your knowledge is sufficient. I think you're ready for a special mission. So she's telling her, I have a deal with Nanawe's father, but Defacer, who didn't know that's his name, is like, Nano what? And she says, King Shark's true name. King isn't just a code name. He really is royalty of a sort. As part of this deal, I can keep him detained for his crimes, but on occasion, I must allow him to return to his homeland for visits. The problem is, due to his unique physiology, I can't outfit Nanawe with an incentivizing device to ensure he comes back to Bel Rev. I want you to be my insurance. So Defacer's just looking at her like, dude, what the hell? And she tells her like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm the wrong person for this because I don't actually have any powers at all. She says, I'm not nearly mean enough for Task Force X. But Amanda tells her, yes, you're useless and thus disposable. More importantly, though, Nanawe likes you for some reason, enough to risk my wrath for explicitly, and I mean explicitly, disobeying my do not eat inmates' orders. So I'll tell him that if he doesn't come back, I'll trigger the bomb implanted at the base of your neck. And so she says, so take this order to Peacemaker and have him set you up with a deployment. You and King Shark leave first thing in the morning. So Peacemaker's just like, dead girl coming through. Where, I mean, I guess he did end up doing it because we see that they go and drop them off literally just in the middle of the water. So she's trying to activate her little like rockets and shit. And it starts to work, but not in time because she ends up falling into the water anyway. And then they're surrounded by sharks, and this is my literal worst fear. Being surrounded by sharks like this. I've spoken about this in past videos. I do not like sharks. I do not like the idea of being surrounded by them in water. I don't even care if I'm in one of those damn cages. I don't trust it. Anyway, so he's talking to her and he says, my people tend to get excited when I'm around, which makes sense. He says, she's like, oh God. And he says, nah, I'm just a half Aumakua. I'm pretty sure that's some sort of Pacific Islander term. I don't really know. Anyway, he says, but Lord Chandraka, also called Kamo the Cutter of Waves, the teeth of the depths, and he who is the shadow above and below. He's the god of all sharks. I'm like the sun. What's his name? And she says, geez. He's like, close enough. So we see this thing where, God, like if I actually saw this in the water, this massive, my soul would literally evaporate. Like, you can have my body, the soul is already gone. Anyway, he's saying, like, you have returned to the bay of your spawning, my son. And he just tells him, well, it ain't like you were real subtle, Big Daddy. And then we see Defacer saying, like, they're bumping into me. That's not good, right? And no, it's not. I'm pretty sure I think sharks do that to, like, see if the thing they're going to try to eat is actually alive or not. So they'll bump into it first. I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, we see where King Shark's dad is telling him, like, not just yet. The coming challenge demands you be in peak form. There must be a test to ensure my kingdom is properly represented in the wild games. So Defacer says, sounds like something sponsored by an energy drink, right? Was that a nibble? I think it was a nibble. And then King Shark's like, oh, come on, I'm one of Waller's lead guys. I've been chomping fools and crapping bones all over the place. What else do you need to know? But his dad tells him, silence. If Waller still hasn't taught you respect, then all the more reason for me to doubt your readiness. So that's when they see something's coming directly for them. And his dad says, there are those who say our people are no longer the apex predators of the seas. Thus, I have challenged a challenger from outside my realm and species. So we see that it's actually Orca, who kind of goes back and forth. She was kind of becoming more of like an anti-hero type of thing. But yeah, for whatever reason, she's brought in to fight King Shark, which I guess it does make for an interesting fight. So King Shark's dad is saying, like, Dr. Grace Balin, though once she was a lowly landlegger, now she is Orca, the whale woman. But we go from there back over to Bloodhaven, like kind of a flashback to when Defacer was kind of getting to know Orca, and she was kind of opening up, saying like, hey, like Defacer said, I'm Orca, you can call me Grace. I haven't really felt any temptations to do crime lately. I guess the main thing for me now is just remembering who I am, what I am. Sometimes I have to look in the mirror and remind myself that despite what I see, I'm still a woman. I have to tell myself, I'm not a beast. I'm not a beast. But that brings us back to this, where she's literally saying, I am a beast, and continues fighting with King Shark, telling him, like, I'm the queen of the sea, and I will strip you of the right to represent the oceans in the wild games, King Shark, when I strip your hide. But he says, honey, if only it were that easy, but it ain't, and you ain't stripping nothing but paint off the walls with your clam breath. So she, like, punches him, knocks him onto the island and shit, and she comes up still talking shit. So Defacer is coming up, but King Shark's dad says, do not interfere, Defacer. Might is right. Nature must take its course. But she's like, easy for you to say, you incredibly crappy father. If your kid dies, Amanda Waller won't explode your brain. So Orca's coming up and says, look at you. Living on land has made you softer and duller than the sand of this beach. You've stopped moving, so now you're going to die. But he says, you're tough, girl. I'll give you that. But not as tough as him, because he manages to get the upper hand and then literally bites down on her neck. So Defacer is coming up and telling him, like, you know, I thought I was coming to tell Orca not to kill you, but I guess it's actually the other way around. And then she starts telling him that, or reminds him that, you know, you said earlier that, she does throw this little joke, sort of joke in there, where she's like, and look, she's challenging a shark for the title of best fish or whatever, so clearly she's a little lost. But you're not. You told me I could control my frenzy, right? Well, show me how, by example. So he does, like, let go of her, and she says, like, let go of me and shit, and then just takes off and says, I'm a beast, nothing but a stupid, useless beast. And Defacer tries calling after her, but it doesn't really do much of anything. And then we see King Shark saying, like, my teeth, because she knocked out some of his teeth or whatever. But Defacer tells her, they'll grow back. Yeah, I watched David Attenborough, so what? So go after her, help her. But his dad says, he will not. Nanaue has defended his station as exemplar of the sea, and whether I believe he is ready or not, time grows short, and the choice is final. I must send King Shark on his way by tearing a wound in the world. Go now into the red. I will be watching. And when they said that, I got so excited because I haven't really seen enough mention of the red ever since like the New 52 Animal Man series. I don't know if anyone read that, like the war between the red and the green, and then they also brought in like the black and I think even the gray. They brought in all kinds of different things where it's just basically like the green is Swamp Thing, so all of the plants. And then you have the red, which is all the living things. And then you had the black, which was all the dead stuff. And I believe the gray was all of like the in between, like the fungus people. That one was just really gross. But anyway, it was a really interesting story. That's why I'm saying if you've never actually read that particular storyline, I think that I want to say they collected it at some point. If so, if you can find that, read it because it's really interesting stuff. But that's actually what we're going to be dealing with here when it says, you're going to go into the red. So Defacer is saying like, wait, you can't go. I'm supposed to bring you back to Waller. I'm totally disposable to her. What do you think is going to happen when I return empty-handed? So he turns around and asks his dad, like, what do we do? And his dad says, my deal with Waller is forfeit. This human thing is not part of the wild games. The future of the oceanscape rests only with you, son. And not even the god of all sharks can save it from that. So Nanaue just like kind of grabs her by the hand and takes her with him. So we go from there over to Amanda Waller, who's watching, and her like subordinate or whatever is telling her, yeah, we kind of lost the signal from Defacer because she like passed over. So she's asking him like she died already. And she says, no, ma'am. The energy emissions in the area at the moment the signal disappeared are consistent with signatures associated with elemental forces, Swamp Thing, Animal Man, etc. Defacer went to a parallel ethereal dimension. So she's saying like with my King Shark. No one goes home tonight until we've assembled a Task Force X team capable of extracting my asset from heaven, hell, or anywhere in between. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't really Suicide Squad thing yet, but apparently she's going to put together a special team to like deal with this. I don't know who will be comprised of, but we'll find out. So he's asking her like, how, ma'am? Wouldn't they have to be dead to do that? She says, to some degree, yes. Don't look so surprised. You think anybody's sentence in Bel Rev ends just because they die? So we come back to like Defacer, who's kind of like waking up, and she's not really feeling so great because she immediately just like throws up. So he's telling her, you got some of the red in your mask there, Defacer. Beginner's mistake. So she's like, the inside of my nose smells like burning hair and used dental floss, which is the worst smell I can think of. And then he says, I don't know if this works with lungs, but to get the goop out of your gill slits, you gotta do this thing where she's like, do not touch me. I don't want your help. And then she just kind of like freaks out on him and just kind of vents for a second, telling him a whole bunch of shit. She's like, so far, all you liking me has done for me is made me witness a horrific murder, shunted me off to a meeting with the fish the size of a country, and delivered me through the universe's sphincter to God knows where. So we see where he just literally starts throwing a tantrum too, where he's like, and he's like, I guess I can never do anything right and shit. He just like stomps away, and he's like, whatever. So she's like, totally peed a little, which I probably would have too if there was a gigantic shark thing just yelling in my face. I probably would. That'd probably be the least of my worries, honestly. But anyway, we see this thing where she turns around and there's this person thing that's doing this. And it starts to like explaining to her, like, that's where we are, and God does know it. See, every 10,000 years, the red, the elemental force of all animal life, has to be cleansed and recharged. So each member of the Parliament of Limbs begins to groom an exemplar to enter the well of evolution. And this is the Parliament of Limbs, sort of like the Parliament of Trees in the green. And so it says, and add their material essence to the red, ensuring their species domination of the planet Earth for the next 10 millennia or more. But in the wild realms, might is right, and so the exemplars are gathered to compete in a tournament, a fight to the death for the right of survival. We're sitting in the waiting room for that battle. So he says, was that David Attenborough enough for you? You really gotta emphasize planet Earth. Earth. Like that. I don't know how David Attenborough says it. Don't really care. And so she's like, who are you? So he kind of like takes down his like hood and everything, reveals who he is and tells her, nice of you to ask. If I heard the exemplar of the sea right, your name is Defacer, yeah? Vic Wynn at your service, Miss Defacer. So she says, hey, why do I know you? And he says, you probably know my face from my business ventures, including Wingram and Wikipedia. But I have hobbies other than making money, including being picked by the Lord of all men. I'm the member of our species chosen to battle for the future of humanity as the Man King. So I don't actually know who the Lord of all men is. I don't. Do they have that in this group? I don't see one that looks like a man in the Parliament of Limbs, but I think it's, is it that one, like with these weird horns that has like one human leg popping out? I'm assuming that's the one. Or maybe there's another one on Earth. I don't know who it would be. Anyway, so he says, "Wish me luck. I hear you're, well, you were very close. You were very clear you weren't close. So let's say your associate, King Shark, is going to be tougher to corner than a Silicon Valley angel investor." And then we go outside to where we see Bewana Beast is actually the one who's kind of like, I don't know, refereeing or emceeing. And if you don't recognize him, Bewana Beast, he's kind of an interesting thing. He's a little bit like Animal Man in that he kind of, well, no, it's almost sort of more like Aquaman, that he can kind of communicate with animals, and then he also has like, you know, dexterity and like super reflexes and stuff like that. But he also has this special thing that allows him to combine animals together in sort of like just a weird amalgamation. I think it's up to four, three or four. And then yeah, like he's able to just do that and make the, like, he can put a spider with a butterfly and a tiger, I guess. So that way it has like teeth and it can climb on walls and it can fly. Like he can do shit like that. So he's got that going on for him, but I don't think he's actually competing in this. So we see all of the different exemplars for this competition that's about to go on, the Wild Games. So it says, "It's like Mortal Kombat, but with furries. And I have to make friends with King Shark again to make sure he loses," she's saying, because, I mean, yeah, like they still got to get back before she dies. Although I don't know if she'll actually die. Like, I don't know if the bomb thing will actually, like, go off, but yeah, that's where we leave off for this. This is going to be a mini series because it says it's 1 of 6. I mean, granted, it's not like they've never extended something beyond a mini series before. Sometimes that does happen, but I don't really think that's going to be one of the cases here. This does look interesting to me though, because like I said, I've been a fan of like the whole red and green thing for like a while. So the fact that they're going to play more on that, I'm willing to see where this goes. And then also because like this King Shark isn't being written just like the way he was in the movie, which I'm so thankful for. I really hate it when they come out like with a movie that features a character from the comics and then they just immediately turn the character in the comics into the character from the movie. I get why they do it, because they're hoping, oh, maybe people will go and read the comics and then they'll see that, oh, this is the same character I saw on screen, and they'll keep going with it. But what they actually end up doing is just alienate the fans who already like the character by making it like something that they may or may not have actually liked. So I am in favor of them doing this, keeping him different from his movie incarnation. And honestly, he seems like a more well-rounded character, at least thus far, than we've seen in previous iterations. So I'm going to keep picking this up. I'm excited to see where this story goes, how it's going to end and all of that. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me here. So if you read this, let me know your thoughts. If you didn't read it, let me know your thoughts on how I read it. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Share your thoughts with me down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely make sure to like the video. Make sure you are subscribed and share the video if you would like. I do always appreciate that. But if you're done here, then go and read a book, possibly this one. And if not, well, then I'll see you on my next video.